When the Alpha King's eyes swept past every eligible she-wolf at the sacred mating ceremony and locked onto a forgotten Omega girl hiding in the shadows, he shocked the entire pack by declaring her his chosen mate on the spot. But as Seraphina stood trembling in her plain gray dress, while nobles whispered of scandal and political alliances crumbled around them, one burning question remained. Could a lonely kitchen servant truly become the Luna Queen? Or would the ancient forces conspiring against their impossible union tear them apart before their bond could fully form? The smell of burning sage filled the air as hundreds of wolves gathered in the ancient stone circle. Today was the day that would change everything. The Alpha King would choose his mate, and whoever he picked would become the most powerful woman in all the wolf lands. Seraphina wiped her sweaty hands on her old gray dress. She wasn't supposed to be here. Kitchen maids didn't attend the mating ceremony. But something deep inside her wolf had pulled her from her hiding place behind the cooking fires. Now she pressed herself against the cold stone wall, trying to become invisible. "Look at all those beautiful girls," whispered an old woman next to her, each one hoping to catch the king's eye. Seraphina looked at the line of she-wolves in the center of the circle. Their dresses sparkled like jewels. Their hair shone like silk. Their families stood proudly behind them, showing off their daughters like precious treasures. Lady Vivienne stood at the front of the line. Her red dress cost more than Seraphina earned in a whole year. Her father owned half the northern territories. Everyone said she would be the chosen one. "The king approaches!" shouted the elder. The crowd went quiet. Even the birds stopped singing. Seraphina's heart pounded so hard she thought everyone could hear it. A figure emerged from the ceremonial tent. Alpha King Matthias was even bigger than the story said. His shoulders were wide as a door. His dark hair was pulled back, showing a face that looked like it was carved from stone. But his eyes were the color of liquid gold. Those golden eyes moved slowly over each girl in the line. Vivienne stood straighter. The other girls held their breath. Parents leaned forward, hoping their daughter would be the chosen one. But the king's eyes kept moving. Past Vivienne, past all the beautiful girls, past their proud families. His gaze swept over the crowd like he was looking for something he had lost. Then his eyes found Seraphina. She forgot how to breathe. The king stared at her like he knew her, like he had been searching for her his whole life. Around her, people began to whisper, "Why is he looking over there? What's he staring at?" There's nothing but servants in that corner. The king took a step toward her. Then another. The crowd parted like water as he walked. His eyes never left her face. Seraphina wanted to run. Her legs felt like water. Her wolf was doing something strange inside her chest, like it was trying to break free and run to him. "This can't be happening," she whispered. But the king kept walking. Each step brought him closer. Each step made her heart beat faster. The whispers around her grew louder. "Who is that girl? Where did she come from? She's not even dressed properly." Lady Vivienne's face turned white, then red. Her father pushed through the crowd, his eyes angry and confused. The king stopped right in front of Seraphina. Up close, he was even more amazing. He smelled like pine trees and thunderstorms. His presence made her feel safe and terrified at the same time. "Step forward," he said. His voice was deep and warm like honey. Seraphina shook her head. This was wrong. This was impossible. Kings didn't notice kitchen maids. They especially didn't notice kitchen maids with no family, no money, and no reason to exist. I said step forward. This time it wasn't a request. Slowly, her legs shaking, Seraphina moved away from the wall. The crowd pressed back, giving them space. She could feel hundreds of eyes watching her every move. "What's your name?" the king asked. Seraphina, Your Majesty." Her voice came out as barely a whisper. "Seraphina." He said it like he was tasting something sweet. "How old are you?" 19, sir." "Do you have family?" No, sir. They died when I was small. Something changed in his golden eyes. They became softer, sadder. Where do you live? In the servants' quarters. I work in the kitchens. The crowd gasped. A kitchen maid! The king was talking to a kitchen maid! Seraphina wanted to disappear into the ground. But the king smiled. It was the first time she had seen him smile, and it changed his whole face. He didn't look scary anymore. He looked happy. Perfect, he said, so quietly only she could hear. Perfect, she repeated, confused. He reached out his hand. Will you trust me? Seraphina stared at his offered hand. It was big and strong and covered with small scars from battles she couldn't imagine. If she took it, everything would change. If she took it, there would be no going back to her small, safe life in the kitchens. But something in his eyes made her decision easy. She placed her small hand in his large one. The moment their hands touched, electricity shot up Seraphina's arm. The king's eyes went wide. He felt it too. Impossible! Someone shouted from the crowd. This breaks every rule. Elder Marcus pushed his way forward, his face red with anger. Your Majesty, this is highly irregular. The ceremony has protocols. Ancient traditions must be followed. King Matthias didn't let go of Seraphina's hand. Instead, he pulled her closer to his side. The moon goddess chooses who she chooses, Elder Marcus. Are you questioning her wisdom? Of course not. But then there's nothing more to discuss. The king's voice carried across the entire ceremony ground. I have found my mate. The crowd exploded. People shouted over each other. Some cheered. Others argued. Lady Vivienne screamed like she was being murdered. This is outrageous! Lord Vivienne, her father, stormed toward them. His face was purple with rage. My daughter was promised this position. We had an agreement. We had discussions, the king corrected. No promises were made. Our alliance depends on this marriage. Without it, the northern territories will end Hain. Will what? The king's voice became dangerous. Are you threatening me, Lord Vivienne? Seraphina squeezed the king's hand. Please, she whispered. I don't want to cause trouble. He looked down at her, and his expression softened again. You're not causing trouble, you're solving it. I don't understand. I know, but you will. He turned back to the crowd. I present to you my chosen mate, Seraphina. Half the crowd cheered. The other half looked like they wanted to start a war. Lady Vivienne broke free from her father's grip and marched toward them. Her beautiful face was twisted with hatred. You can't be serious. Look at her. She's nobody. She has no training, no education, no bloodline worth mentioning. She has something more valuable than all of that, the king said calmly. What could she possibly have that I don't? The king looked at Seraphina again. Those golden eyes seemed to see right into her soul. She has a kind heart. Seraphina felt tears start to form. No one had ever said anything like that about her before. Most people didn't notice her at all. A kind heart doesn't rule a kingdom, Vivienne shrieked. Doesn't it? The king asked. Tell me, Lady Vivienne, what did you have for breakfast this morning? She looked confused. What does that have to do with anything? Just answer the question. I had eggs and fresh bread and honey cakes. And who prepared that food for you? The servants, obviously. Do you know their names? Vivienne's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Why would I need to know servants' names? The king nodded like she had proven his point. Seraphina, what did you have for breakfast? I didn't have time to eat, Your Majesty. One of the kitchen girls was sick, so I had to prepare extra meals for the ceremony guests. And did you make sure the sick girl had something to eat? Seraphina blushed. I brought her some soup and bread. Nothing fancy. You see? The king addressed the crowd. One thinks only of herself. The other thinks of everyone but herself. Which would you rather have as your Luna? Some people in the crowd began nodding. Others still looked doubtful. Elder Marcus stepped forward again. Your Majesty, even if your choice has admirable qualities. She lacks the proper training. She doesn't know how to run a royal household, how to handle political meetings, how to best cram. She can learn, the king interrupted. But the coronation is in 3 days. There's no time to. Then we'll marry today. The crowd went completely silent. Even the wind seemed to stop blowing. Today? Seraphina gasped. Right now, if you'll have me. The king turned to face her fully. I know this is sudden. I know it's scary. But I've been dreaming of your face for months. The moon goddess sent you to me. Will you be my mate? Seraphina's mind spun. This morning she had been nobody. Now the most powerful man in the kingdom was asking her to marry him. It felt like a fairy tale. But fairy tales weren't real, were they? She looked around at all the watching faces. Some looked hopeful. Others looked angry or jealous. A few looked curious, like they were watching an interesting show. Then she looked back at the king. He was waiting patiently for her answer. His golden eyes were kind but determined. He wanted her, not for her beauty or her family's money or political connections. He wanted her, Seraphina the kitchen maid, just as she was. But what if I'm not good enough? She whispered. You are more than good enough, he said firmly. You are exactly what this kingdom needs, what I need. Behind them, Lady Vivienne made a choking sound. This is madness. This is destiny, the king replied without looking away from Seraphina. Seraphina felt something shift inside her chest. Her wolf was practically purring with happiness. This felt right, scary, but right. She took a deep breath and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear, Yes, I'll marry you. The king's smile could have lit up the whole ceremony ground. But as the crowd erupted in a mixture of cheers and shouts of protest, Seraphina couldn't help but wonder, what had she just gotten herself into? The massive ceremonial bell crashed to the ground as Matthias grabbed Seraphina's trembling hand, its bronze surface cracking like thunder across the sacred grounds. Every wolf present froze in complete shock. Never in the 1,000-year history of their kind had an alpha king chosen his mate so suddenly, so dramatically, so completely against tradition. Your Majesty, please reconsider. Elder Thompson's weathered face turned pale as winter frost. The ancient laws require proper courtship rituals, bloodline verification, pack approval ceremonies that take months to complete. But Matthias wasn't listening to anyone except the rapid heartbeat of the small Omega beside him. Her scent of wild honeysuckle and morning rain filled his senses, exactly as it had in his prophetic dreams. Those mysterious visions had started appearing 4 weeks ago, showing him a golden-haired girl with sad green eyes who would change everything. The moon goddess doesn't follow our schedules, Elder, Matthias declared, his deep voice carrying across the stunned crowd. When she speaks, we listen. When she shows us our destined mate, we don't question her wisdom with paperwork and politics. Seraphina felt like she might faint right there in front of everyone. This morning, she'd been invisible, scrubbing breakfast dishes in the kitchen, while dreaming of someday finding a kind mate who might accept her low status. Now, the most powerful wolf in their world was announcing she belonged to him, and hundreds of important people were staring at her like she'd grown a second head. I don't understand, she whispered, her voice so soft only his supernatural hearing could catch it. Why me? I'm nobody special. I clean floors and wash clothes and live in the servants' quarters behind the kitchens. Matthias turned to face her completely, blocking out the chaos surrounding them. His amber eyes, which had struck fear into countless enemies, looked at her with such gentle warmth that her knees nearly buckled. You're wrong about that, little Omega. You're the most special person who's ever lived. From across the ceremonial circle, Lady Vivienne watched this impossible scene unfold, with growing rage burning in her chest like acid. For 3 years, everyone had assumed she would become the next Luna Queen. Her father, Alpha Harrison of the Mountain Ridge Pack, had spent those years building political alliances based on that expected union. Trade agreements, military partnerships, territorial boundaries, everything depended on joining their two powerful bloodlines. "This is madness," she hissed to her personal guard, Captain Drake. "He's throwing away everything for some random servant girl who probably can't even shift properly." Captain Drake, a loyal soldier who'd served her family for decades, nodded grimly. "What are your orders, my lady?" "Send word to my father immediately. Tell him the Alpha King has lost his mind, and we need to activate our backup plans before this disaster destroys everything we've worked for." Meanwhile, Beta Marcus stood frozen beside his Alpha, his strategic mind racing through all the political disasters this impulsive decision would create. As Matthias's closest advisor and childhood friend, he'd seen the king make bold choices before, but never anything this potentially destructive to pack stability. "Matthias," he said quietly, using his friend's first name instead of his title, "think about what you're doing. The Northern Territories Alliance depends on your marriage to Lady Vivienne. Without that union, we could face war with 3 neighboring pacts by winter." "Then we'll face war," Matthias replied without hesitation. "But I won't sacrifice my true mate for political convenience. The moon goddess gave me these dreams for a reason, Marcus. I've waited 32 years to find her, and I'm not letting her go now that she's finally here." The crowd began murmuring louder as word spread beyond the ceremonial grounds. Servants, guards, and pack members who'd been working throughout the territory started arriving to witness this historic moment. Some looked excited by the unexpected drama, while others appeared worried about what this meant for their future security. Elder Patricia, the oldest and most respected spiritual advisor, stepped forward with her ancient staff carved from blessed oak. Her blind eyes, clouded white with age, somehow seemed to see more than anyone else present. "Alpha King Matthias," she said in her crackling voice that commanded instant silence, "the sacred bonds of matehood cannot be entered lightly, especially by those who lead our people. Are you certain this Omega is truly your goddess-chosen partner?" "I've never been more certain of anything in my life," he answered firmly. "And you, child," Elder Patricia turned toward Seraphina, who nearly jumped out of her skin at being addressed directly. "Do you accept this bond willingly? Do you understand the enormous responsibilities that come with being our Luna Queen?" Seraphina looked around at all the expectant faces, some hopeful, some angry, some curious, all waiting for her answer. Her whole life had been about staying invisible, avoiding attention, never causing problems for anyone. Now she stood at the center of the biggest decision in pack history. "I don't know if I'm strong enough," she admitted honestly. "But if the Alpha King believes the moon goddess chose me, then I'll try my best to be worthy of that blessing." Elder Patricia smiled for the first time in years. "Child, anyone who doubts their own worthiness already shows more wisdom than most leaders possess." But as the ancient wedding ceremony began right there on the sacred grounds, with Elder Patricia performing the ritual bonding that would make them official mates, none of them noticed Captain Drake slipping away into the forest shadows. His message to Alpha Harrison would reach the Mountain Ridge Pack by sunset, and the first seeds of rebellion were already being planted. The question that would haunt them all was simple. Would love truly conquer the political storm about to break over their heads? Seraphina's fork clattered against her crystal plate as she tried to cut the exotic roasted pheasant, sending echoes through the enormous royal dining hall that made her cheeks burn red with shame. 3 hours as Luna Queen, and she'd already made a fool of herself in front of the most important wolves in the kingdom. "Perhaps I could help you with that," Lady Vivienne said sweetly from across the massive oak table, her smile sharp as broken glass. "Roasted pheasant requires a specific cutting technique that takes years of proper training to master." The subtle insult hit its target perfectly. Everyone at the table, visiting alphas, important merchants, high-ranking military officers, watched as their new Luna Queen struggled with basic dinner etiquette that noble children learned before their 5th birthday. Matthias's jaw tightened dangerously. My mate can eat however makes her comfortable. We're not here to judge table manners. Of course not, Your Majesty. Alpha Harrison agreed smoothly, though his cold blue eyes never left Seraphina's face. Though I'm curious about our new Luna's background. What pack did you come from, my dear? Your parents must be so proud of this incredible honor. The question she'd been dreading finally came, and Seraphina felt her throat close up like someone was strangling her. Everyone waited for her answer while she sat there wishing the floor would swallow her whole. I don't have parents anymore, she managed to whisper. They died when I was 7. A rogue attack on our small border pack. I've been working in the royal kitchens ever since, trying to earn my place here. The silence that followed was so complete. She could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. Being an orphan was bad enough, but admitting she came from servant work instead of noble bloodlines made everything 10 times worse. How tragic. Lady Vivienne's voice dripped with false sympathy. So you have no family connections, no political alliances, no diplomatic experience, no military training, and no education in royal protocols. Tell me, what exactly qualifies you to help rule our kingdom? Beta Marcus quickly jumped in before Matthias could explode with anger. Lady Vivienne, perhaps we should focus on welcoming our new Luna rather than questioning the Alpha King's choices. I'm simply trying to understand how someone with no leadership background plans to handle the complex challenges facing our people, she replied innocently. For instance, what would you do if the Eastern clans demanded increased hunting rights in our protected forests? How would you negotiate trade disputes with the coastal packs? What's your strategy for managing our military resources during the upcoming winter shortage? Each question hit Seraphina like a physical blow. She had no idea how to answer any of them. Her entire experience consisted of managing kitchen supplies and helping cook meals for the palace staff. The weight of everyone's expectations pressed down on her shoulders until she could barely breathe. I would need to learn about those issues, she stammered. I know I have a lot to study before I can make good decisions about important matters like that. How refreshingly honest. Alpha Harrison chuckled, but the sound held no warmth. Though I wonder if our enemies will wait patiently while you complete your education. The Shadow Creek Pack has been testing our borders for months, looking for signs of weakness they can exploit. Matthias slammed his fist on the table so hard, several wine glasses shattered. Enough. My mate's worth isn't determined by her political knowledge or her family connections. She has qualities far more valuable than anything taught in noble schools. Such as? Lady Vivienne challenged boldly. Compassion, honesty, the courage to admit when she doesn't know something instead of pretending otherwise, the wisdom to put others' needs before her own comfort. His golden eyes blazed with protective fury. Those are the traits of a true leader, not memorizing trade agreements and military statistics. But Seraphina barely heard his defense. She was remembering every mistake she'd made since the ceremony ended, tripping on the steps to the royal chambers, not knowing which bathroom was appropriate for the Luna Queen, accidentally calling Elder Patricia ma'am instead of using her proper title. Each memory felt like another weight added to the crushing load of inadequacy. After dinner, she escaped to the royal gardens where the cool night air helped calm her burning cheeks. The ancient rose bushes bloomed in perfect rows, their sweet fragrance reminding her of her mother's small herb garden from long ago. Everything here was beautiful, expensive, and completely foreign to someone who'd spent years sleeping on a narrow cot in the servants' quarters. Having second thoughts already, she spun around to find Lady Vivienne approaching through the moonlit pathway, her silk gown flowing elegantly behind her like liquid silver. I saw you sneak out here, Vivienne continued, settling gracefully on a marble bench like she belonged in these surroundings. Smart choice. Royal dinners can be overwhelming for someone unprepared. What do you want? Seraphina asked tiredly. To offer you a solution to both our problems. Vivienne's voice became businesslike, all pretense of politeness dropping away. You're miserable. Anyone can see that. You don't belong in this world of politics and power games. Every day will bring new challenges you can't handle, new ways to embarrass yourself and disappoint the Alpha King. The cruel words hurt because they felt true. Meanwhile, Vivian continued, my father's alliance agreements are falling apart because of this impulsive mating ceremony. 3 neighboring pacts are reconsidering their loyalty to our kingdom. The economic partnerships my family spent years building are crumbling. People could die because of the instability you've created. I didn't ask for any of this, Seraphina protested weakly. No, but you can fix it. Vivian leaned forward intently. Leave. Disappear quietly tonight before anyone wakes up. I'll tell Matthias you realized you weren't suited for royal life and chose to spare him the embarrassment of a failed Luna Queen. Within a month, he'll mate with me as originally planned. The political alliances will be restored, and everyone will be happier. Including me? Seraphina asked bitterly. Especially you. You'll be free to find some nice ordinary wolf who won't expect you to handle diplomatic crises and lead military councils. Someone who matches your level. The offer hung in the air between them like poison disguised as medicine. Part of Seraphina wanted to accept it, to run away from all the pressure and expectations she couldn't meet. But a smaller, stubborn part of her remembered the way Matthias had looked at her during the ceremony, like she was precious, important, worth fighting for. Before she could answer, footsteps crunched on the gravel path behind them. Both women turned to see Beta Marcus approaching, his expression grim in the moonlight. Lady Vivienne, your father requests your immediate presence in the guest chambers, he announced formally. Apparently, he's received urgent messages from the Mountain Ridge Pack that require your attention. As Vivienne swept away with a final meaningful look at Seraphina, Marcus remained behind. His weathered face showed the strain of trying to balance loyalty to his alpha with concern for pack stability. She's not wrong about the political situation, he said quietly. 3 alliance agreements are already under review. The Northern Territories are questioning Matthias's judgment. Some of our own council members are privately discussing whether the Alpha King has become unfit to lead. Because of me, Seraphina whispered. Because of the circumstances, Marcus corrected carefully. But Luna, I need you to understand something. Matthias has waited his entire adult life for his true mate. The loneliness was destroying him slowly, turning him cold and distant from everyone who cared about him. When he found you today, I saw hope return to his eyes for the first time in years. He paused, choosing his words carefully. The question isn't whether you deserve him. The question is whether you're brave enough to fight for what the moon goddess gave you both. As Marcus walked away, leaving her alone with the roses and the weight of an impossible choice, Seraphina stared up at the full moon, hanging silver and bright above the royal palace. Would she find the courage to stay and learn to be the Luna Queen her mate believed she could become? Or would the fear of failure drive her away from the first real home she'd ever known? The royal bedroom felt like a cage made of gold and silk. Seraphina sat by the tall window, watching storm clouds gather in the distance, while her fingers traced the rough edges of a small wooden wolf her mother had carved years ago. 3 days had passed since servants whispered behind her back about the kitchen girl who tricked the king, and each cruel word cut deeper than the last. You don't belong here, she whispered to her reflection in the glass. Lightning flashed outside, making her jump as thunder rolled across the castle grounds. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway. Matthias appeared in the doorway, his powerful frame filling the space as water dripped from his dark hair. He had been running patrol in wolf form, something he did when stress ate at his mind. The maid said you haven't eaten today, he said, worry thick in his voice. Seraphina turned away. I'm not hungry. That's not true. He crossed the room in 3 long steps. What's really wrong? She clutched the wooden carving tighter. Lady Vivienne visited me this morning. Matthias froze. His amber eyes flashed with anger that made his wolf nature show through. What did she say? She brought me a book. Seraphina pointed to a thick leather volume on the dresser. Rules for Royal Behavior, 1,000 pages of everything I'm supposed to know but don't. I don't care about, but I do. The words burst out of her like water breaking through a dam. Do you know what happened at lunch today? I couldn't remember which spoon to use for soup. The visiting Duchess stared at me like I was some wild animal that wandered into her dining room. Matthias knelt beside her chair, making himself smaller so he wouldn't tower over her. Seraphina, look at me. She shook her head. Tears burned her eyes. Please, he said softly. When she finally met his gaze, she saw something that surprised her. Not pity or disappointment, but fierce protection mixed with deep sadness. Do you want to know what I was doing before I met you? He asked. She nodded, sitting through meetings about grain taxes and border disputes, while Lady Vivienne planned our wedding menu. She had already picked out names for our future children. His jaw tightened. I felt like I was drowning in silk and suffocating on proper behavior. But that's what kings do, Seraphina whispered. No. He took her hands in his much larger ones. That's what people think kings should do. But a real king protects what matters most. Thunder crashed overhead, shaking the castle windows. Rain began pelting against the glass in heavy drops. What matters most to you? She asked. Instead of answering with words, Matthias stood and walked to his desk. He pulled out a leather journal and brought it back to her. Read the entry from 4 weeks ago. Seraphina opened to the marked page. His handwriting was bold and clear. Had the dream again. Golden hair like sunlight, green eyes full of kindness I've never seen in court. She was crying in a garden, but when she looked up and smiled, everything felt right for the first time in my life. The moon goddess is trying to tell me something. Her breath caught. You wrote this before you met me? Every night for a month I dreamed of your face. Not Lady Vivienne's. Not any of the noble daughters my advisors suggested. Yours. He sat on the edge of the bed, close enough to touch, but careful not to crowd her. Do you think the moon goddess made a mistake? I don't know, she admitted. Sometimes it feels impossible. Want to know a secret? He leaned closer. I can't use the right fork either. I eat with my hands when no one's looking. Despite her sadness, Seraphina's lips curved upward slightly. Really? Really. And last week, I forgot the name of the ambassador from the Eastern Territories, called him the wrong thing for an entire dinner. Matthias grinned. Marcus nearly fainted. What did you call him? Ambassador Fishface. His real name is Ambassador Finley. This time Seraphina actually giggled. The sound seemed to light up Matthias's whole face. There she is, he murmured. My real queen. I'm scared. She whispered. Of what? That one day you'll realize everyone else was right. That you deserve better than a girl who doesn't know how to curtsy properly. Matthias was quiet for a long moment. Outside, the storm grew stronger. But inside, their room felt safe and warm. Can I tell you what I see when I look at you? He asked finally. Seraphina nodded. I see the woman who worked 16-hour days in the kitchen and never complained. I see someone who shared her dinner with stray cats even when she barely had enough for herself. His voice grew thick with emotion. I see the person who noticed when old Martha hurt her back and took over her heavy lifting without being asked. How do you know about that? Because I've been watching you for months, trying to figure out why you appeared in my dreams. The moon goddess showed me your heart, Seraphina. Your kindness, your strength, that has nothing to do with royal blood or proper manners. He reached up and touched her cheek. Noble birth doesn't make someone worthy, but choosing compassion when the world shows you cruelty, that's real nobility. The wooden wolf carving slipped from her fingers and clattered to the floor. As Matthias bent to pick it up, he examined it carefully. Your mother made this? It's all I have left of her. Fresh tears spilled down Seraphina's cheeks. She died when I was 12. Said this little wolf would protect me and help me find my pack someday. She was right. Matthias placed the carving gently back in her hands. You found me. But what if I can't learn fast enough? What if I embarrass you? Then we'll figure it out together. He stood and offered her his hand. Come with me. To get some food. You haven't eaten. And pregnant queens need proper meals. Seraphina's eyes went wide. Pregnant? But how do you... Your scent changed yesterday. Sweet like honey and something else that's purely ours. His smile was gentle and proud. Our child won't care if you use the wrong spoon, Seraphina. They'll just want a mother who loves them. As she took his hand and let him help her stand, Seraphina felt something shift inside her chest. The fear didn't disappear completely, but it mixed with something stronger hope. But neither of them noticed the figure lurking in the shadows outside their door, listening to every word they'd spoken. The challenge horn echoed across the castle grounds at dawn, its deep note making every wolf's blood run cold. Seraphina jerked awake in Matthias's arms, her heart hammering against her ribs as the sound meant only one thing: someone had invoked the right of challenge. Stay here, Matthias commanded, already pulling on his clothes with swift, angry movements. What's happening? Seraphina scrambled out of bed, her bare feet hitting the cold stone floor. Before he could answer, Marcus burst through the door without knocking. His face was pale and grim. My lord, Lady Vivienne has called for a leadership trial. She claims the Luna position was given unlawfully. The world seemed to tilt sideways. Seraphina grabbed the bedpost to steady herself as nausea rose in her throat, whether from pregnancy or terror, she couldn't tell. On what grounds? Matthias's voice had gone deadly quiet. Lack of proper bloodline, insufficient training, and... Marcus hesitated. Inability to unite the pack. That's ridiculous, Matthias snarled. I chose my mate according to ancient law, but not according to pack tradition, came a smooth voice from the doorway. Lady Vivienne stepped into view, dressed in ceremonial fighting leathers that hugged her tall, athletic frame. Her dark hair was braided for battle, and confidence radiated from every inch of her body. You have no right to be in our private chambers, Seraphina found her voice, though it shook. I have every right as a challenger. Vivienne's cold blue eyes swept over Seraphina's simple nightgown and messy hair. The trial begins in 1 hour. I suggest you prepare yourself, if you can. After she left, Seraphina sank into a chair. I don't understand. What kind of trial? Marcus cleared his throat uncomfortably. 3 tests, my lady. Physical strength in wolf form, wisdom in handling pack disputes, and... He paused. And what? Matthias demanded. Leadership under pressure. The pack will watch everything and vote at the end. This is insane. Matthias began pacing like a caged animal. I won't let... You can't interfere. Seraphina's quiet words stopped him mid-step. Can you? Marcus shook his head. Ancient law forbids the alpha from helping during a leadership trial. She has to face this alone. 1 hour later, Seraphina stood in the center of the great courtyard, while hundreds of pack members formed a circle around her. She had never felt so small or so exposed. The simple brown dress the servants had found for her looked shabby next to Vivienne's impressive leather outfit. Elder Thorn raised his staff. Let the first test begin. Both females will shift and demonstrate their wolf strength. Seraphina's heart pounded. She had always been a small wolf, fast and agile, but nothing like the powerful creatures that dominated pack hierarchy. When she shifted, gasps rippled through the crowd. Her wolf form was indeed small, with golden fur that caught the morning sunlight, but she lacked the imposing presence everyone expected from a Luna. Vivienne's shift drew appreciative murmurs. Her wolf was magnificent, sleek black fur over a frame nearly as large as some males, with intelligent amber eyes that surveyed the crowd with natural authority. Strength test, Elder Thorn announced. Move the ceremonial stone from the center to the edge of the circle. The massive granite boulder had been used for pack trials for centuries. Vivienne approached it confidently, planted her powerful haunches, and began pushing. The stone moved steadily across the packed earth while the crowd cheered. When Seraphina's turn came, She stared at the boulder in despair. There was no way her smaller frame could match what Vivienne had just accomplished. But as she placed her paws against the cold stone, she remembered something her mother used to say. Sometimes the smallest key opens the biggest door. Instead of trying to push the boulder directly, Seraphina began digging beneath it, using her smaller size to burrow underneath and create leverage points. It took longer, but eventually, the great stone rolled to where it needed to go, moved not through brute force, but through clever thinking. The crowd murmured in surprise. Some looked impressed, others confused. "Interesting approach," Elder Thorne noted. "Second test wisdom in pack disputes." Two actors stepped forward to present a common problem: neighbors fighting over hunting territory, each claiming the other had crossed agreed boundaries. Vivienne listened to both sides, then made a swift decision. The stronger hunter keeps the territory. Weakness should not be rewarded. When Seraphina's turn came, she asked questions that surprised everyone. "How long have you been neighbors? Do your families depend on hunting for survival? Have you tried hunting together?" After hearing the full story, she proposed something unexpected. "You'll share the territory on alternating weeks, but also work together during the season when prey is scarce. Your skills complement each other. One tracks better. One brings down larger game. Together, you'll both eat better than apart." Elder Thorne nodded slowly. Practical wisdom. Final test leadership under pressure. Without warning, staged chaos erupted around the courtyard. Actors pretended to be injured wolves crying for help. Others shouted about enemy attacks from multiple directions. And still, others demanded immediate attention for various crises. Vivienne took charge instantly, barking orders and trying to handle everything at once. Her commands were clear and authoritative, but she couldn't be everywhere simultaneously. Some crises went unaddressed while she focused on others. When the chaos began again for Seraphina's test, she took a different approach. Instead of trying to handle everything herself, she quickly identified pack members with specific skills and delegated tasks. "Marcus, organize the defense. Sarah, tend the wounded with your healing knowledge. Tom, take 3 others and scout for more enemies." Within minutes, every crisis was being handled by someone qualified to deal with it, while Seraphina coordinated from the center, making sure nothing was forgotten. The courtyard fell silent as the test ended. "Pack members will now vote," Elder Thorne announced. Seraphina's stomach churned as wolves began stepping forward to cast their choices. Many of the nobles supported Vivienne, as expected. But then something surprising happened. The servants began voting. People Seraphina had worked alongside for years. Kitchen maids, stable hands, guards, and groundskeepers all stepped forward to support her. "She helped my sick daughter when the healers were too busy," called out one voice. "Shared her food during the lean winter," said another. "Never acted like she was better than us, even after becoming queen." The votes grew closer than anyone had predicted, but it was Marcus who cast the deciding voice. "I vote for Luna Seraphina," he announced clearly. "Not because she's the strongest or the most traditional, but because she's the one I trust to lead my children into battle and bring them home safely." The crowd erupted in mixed cheers and protests as Elder Thorne raised his staff for silence. But Vivienne wasn't finished yet. "I invoke trial by combat," she shouted. "Single battle to determine the true Luna." The crowd gasped. This wasn't part of the planned trial. It was an ancient, rarely used law that could turn deadly. Matthias roared in fury, but the law was clear. He couldn't interfere. Seraphina looked across the circle at Vivienne's confident smile and realized that everything, her new life, her unborn child, her mate's happiness, now depended on a fight she had no chance of winning. Unless she could find a way to turn her greatest weakness into her greatest strength. The challenge circle erupted in chaos as Lady Vivienne's silver wolf lunged forward, but Seraphina didn't shift. Instead, she stood perfectly still, her hands raised peacefully. "Stop!" she called out, her voice carrying across the grounds with surprising authority. The attacking wolf skidded to a halt just inches from her face, confusion flickering in those cold blue eyes. "This isn't how we solve problems in my pack," Seraphina continued, her gaze sweeping the hundreds of wolves surrounding them. "Violence might be the old way, but it's not the right way." Murmurs rippled through the crowd as she stepped closer to Vivian's wolf form. "You're angry because you think I stole something that belonged to you. But love isn't something you can steal or own." Vivian shifted back to human form, her elegant dress torn and dirty. "You don't understand anything about leadership," she snarled. "You're just a kitchen girl who got lucky." "You're right," Seraphina nodded, surprising everyone. "I was a kitchen girl. Do you know what I learned there?" She walked to the edge of the circle where a group of young Omega stood, watching nervously. "I learned that when someone is hungry, you feed them. When someone is hurt, you heal them. When someone is scared, you protect them." She turned back to face the crowd, her voice growing stronger with each word. "I learned that real power isn't about being the strongest or the loudest. It's about lifting others up instead of tearing them down." Her eyes found Marcus, Matthias's beta, who had been quietly doubting her abilities. "It's about listening to good advice even when it's hard to hear." Matthias stepped forward, his pride in his mate shining clearly on his face, but Seraphina held up a hand, stopping him. "No, my king, this is something I need to do myself." The crowd fell silent as she walked to the ceremonial stone at the center of the circle. Ancient words were carved into its surface, words that had guided their pack for thousands of years. "A true leader serves first," she read aloud. "These aren't just pretty words carved in stone. They're instructions." Lady Vivian laughed bitterly. "Serving others is what servants do. Aluna needs to command respect." "Respect isn't commanded," Seraphina replied softly. "It's earned." She looked around the circle, making eye contact with as many pack members as possible. "I know most of you think I don't belong here. Maybe you're right. Maybe I don't belong on a throne or in a palace." Gasps echoed through the crowd. Was she giving up? "But I do belong with this pack. I belong with wolves who need someone to fight for them, to speak for them, to remember that they matter." She pulled out her mother's wooden wolf carving, holding it up for everyone to see. "This little wolf taught me something important. Sometimes the smallest voice can make the biggest difference." An old Omega woman near the back of the crowd stepped forward. Seraphina recognized her from the kitchens. Elena, who had worked there for 40 years. "Lady Seraphina," Elena called out, her voice shaking with emotion. "You gave me your own food when I was sick last winter. You worked my shifts so I could rest." Another voice joined in. "She helped my son learn to read," called out a young mother. "Taught him herself when the other pups made fun of him for being slow." More voices began to rise. "She stopped the bullying in the servant quarters. She convinced the cook to give us better meals. She made sure we got warm clothes for winter." Seraphina's eyes filled with tears as story after story poured out. These weren't grand gestures or royal proclamations. They were small kindnesses she had forgotten about. Moments when she had simply tried to help. Lady Vivian's confident expression began to crack. "These are just servants," she protested. "What about real pack business? What about negotiations with other territories? What about military strategy? What about it?" Marcus stepped forward, surprising everyone. The beta had been silent throughout the challenge, but now he looked directly at Seraphina with something like respect. "Yesterday, when the northern pack sent their demands about hunting territories, what did you suggest?" Seraphina blushed. "I just thought, maybe if we offered to share the eastern woods during their lean season, they wouldn't need to fight us for the western ones. Both packs could hunt without conflict." "The very solution our war council had been struggling with for months," Marcus announced to the crowd. "While we were planning for battle, our Luna was planning for peace." Matthias couldn't contain his smile. His mate wasn't just kind. She was wise in ways that traditional leadership often missed. But Vivian wasn't finished. "One good idea doesn't make a queen," She spat. What happens when the real challenges come? When enemy packs attack? When the pack needs a warrior, not a peacemaker? Seraphina's expression grew serious. Then I'll stand with my pack and fight. But I'll also remember that our enemies are wolves too, with families and fears just like ours. Maybe, sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is find a way to turn an enemy into a friend. The challenge circle had grown completely still. Even the wind seemed to be holding its breath. The moon goddess chose me for your king, Seraphina said, her voice carrying to every corner of the grounds. Not because I'm perfect, not because I have all the answers, but because I care more about this pack than I care about myself. I will make mistakes. I will need your help, but I will never, ever stop fighting for every single one of you. She looked directly at Lady Vivienne, including you. You love this pack too, or you wouldn't have challenged me. That passion, that fierce protectiveness, we need that. I need that. Will you help me be the Luna this pack deserves? The challenge ended not with victory or defeat, but with something far more powerful. The birth of true unity. 3 years later, Seraphina stood in the royal nursery, gently rocking their newborn daughter, while watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold. Little Arya had her father's amber eyes, but her mother's gentle spirit, and she was already the most beloved pup in pack history. The wooden wolf carving that had once been Seraphina's only treasure now sat on the windowsill, watching over the newest generation. She's going to be spoiled rotten, Matthias said softly, slipping his arms around his family. His voice held nothing but joy as he watched their daughter yawn and snuggle closer to her mother. Every Omega in the pack has volunteered to babysit, and Marcus has already started planning her combat training. Seraphina laughed quietly. Elena brought 3 different blankets yesterday, all hand-knitted. And Vivienne. She shook her head in amazement. Vivienne spent 2 weeks sewing the most beautiful dress I've ever seen. She said every princess needs proper clothing. The transformation of their former rival had been one of the most beautiful surprises of their reign. Lady Vivienne had become not just an ally, but a close friend and trusted advisor. Her political knowledge combined with Seraphina's compassionate approach had made their pack stronger than ever. The Northern Pack messengers arrived this morning, Matthias reported, pressing a gentle kiss to his mate's temple. They want to discuss expanding our alliance to include the Eastern Territories. Apparently, our radical approach to diplomacy is spreading. Seraphina smiled as she remembered those early days when every decision felt impossible, when she questioned whether she belonged in the royal den. Now, 3 years later, their methods had revolutionized pack relations across the entire region. Instead of the constant territorial wars that had plagued their ancestors, packs were learning to cooperate, to share resources during hard times, to solve conflicts with words instead of claws. Do you ever miss it? She asked, adjusting baby Arya's blanket. The way things used to be, when being Alpha King meant commanding through fear instead of building through trust? Matthias was quiet for a moment, considering the question seriously. I miss the simplicity sometimes, he admitted. It was easier when problems could be solved with a show of strength. But easier isn't always better. He looked out the window at the bustling pack grounds below, where wolves of all ranks worked together on the morning's tasks. What we've built together, this is better. This is what our daughter will inherit. As if sensing they were talking about her, Arya opened her tiny eyes and made a soft sound that might have been a laugh. Both parents melted instantly. She's going to change the world, Seraphina whispered, stroking her daughter's soft cheek. Just like her father changed mine. Just like her mother changed everything, Matthias corrected gently. A soft knock at the door interrupted their peaceful moment. Come in, Seraphina called softly. Elena peeked her head in, her weathered face glowing with grandmotherly joy. Forgive the interruption, Luna, but the delegation from the southern mountains has arrived early. They're requesting an audience. Seraphina looked down at her daughter, then at her mate. 3 years ago, She would have panicked at the thought of meeting with foreign dignitaries. Now, she felt only calm confidence. Tell them we'll meet them in the Great Hall in 1 hour, she decided. And Elena, ask Vivienne to join us. Her insights about mountain pack customs will be invaluable. Of course, Luna. Elena beamed with pride. She had watched their kitchen girl grow into a queen, and the transformation never stopped amazing her. After Elena left, Matthias helped Seraphina settle Aria into her crib. The baby went to sleep easily, surrounded by love and the gentle sounds of pack life drifting through the windows. Ready for another day of changing the world? Matthias asked, offering his arm to his queen. Seraphina took one last look at her sleeping daughter, at the wooden wolf carving standing guard, at the life she had built from nothing but hope and determination. Always, she answered, her voice steady with the quiet confidence that had won her a king's heart and a pack's devotion. Together, they walked toward the Great Hall, toward whatever challenges and opportunities awaited them. Behind them, baby Aria slept peacefully, dreaming whatever dreams come to those born into a world where love conquered fear, where the smallest voice could spark the greatest changes, and where a lonely kitchen girl had grown into the most beloved Luna in pack history. The wooden wolf carving caught the morning light, its simple form holding all the magic of dreams that refuse to die, of hearts that choose hope over fear, and of love that transforms not just two souls, but an entire world. Outside, the pack went about their daily lives, secure in the knowledge that they were led by those who saw strength in gentleness, wisdom in compassion, and victory in the choice to build rather than destroy. The future stretched ahead, bright with possibility, carried forward by the legacy of a forgotten girl who had found her way home.